Welcome, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Mary Ann Hensley, and I'm the Vice President of Media Operations here at FreightWaves, and we're happy to present today's webinar in partnership with Kofax. Today, we'll be discussing how logistics companies can embrace digital innovations to keep service levels high while controlling costs, in addition to hearing how Redwood Logistics has been working to make this happen in their own organization. We'll be hearing insights from Saurabh Sharma, Principal Analyst for Ovum, Andrew Gleason, Vice President of Business Development for Redwood Logistics, and Wendy St. Clair, Senior Product Marketing Manager for Kofax. We'll have a live Q&A with the speakers following the presentation as well, so feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentation through the Q&A button in your control bar. If you have any technical issues during the webinar, you can also feel free to reach out to our team via the chat function in your Zoom control bar, and we'll take care of those as they come in. At this point, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Wendy.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for joining us. I'm really excited about today's event, and as Maria mentioned, we do have a couple of esteemed colleagues with us. I'm Wendy St. Clair, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Kofax, and I've got with me Saurabh Sharma, Principal Analyst of Ovum's technology team. He leads the research and consulting for Ovum across a multitude of software, AI, and middleware topics, and he's going to talk about some of his latest research on RPA's evolution in transportation and logistics. From there, we're going to turn it over to Andrew, from Redwood Logistics, and he is going to talk about his experience of how it went for him deploying RPA inside a business. So to get the juices flowing, I'd like to set the stage with a few thoughts on automation and where we're really seeing things happen in the automation industry today. Let's talk for a moment about this evolution of work. This is a topic that was, in fact, a major subject at this year's World Economic Forum, where what's happening in the economy today, they're calling it Workforce 4.0. We're seeing this true convergence between the digital economy and the physical world. And if you think back to the 90s, when we first saw this emergence of the internet, and soon came the proliferation of complex software systems and all the cloud and big data things, and all of this advancement that has now hit us is ironically leading to a new problem where organizations are struggling with the multitude of databases and all the disparate systems and the growing piles of data and compliance requirements, all this stuff. They simply can't keep up, and they can't scale, and their current tools are failing them. And this is where automation really comes into play. To overcome these new challenges, companies are starting to embrace the new tools of automation. And those companies that are starting to put digital workers or robots to work alongside humans are evolving to be much more capable of meeting customer needs because they've freed up their mental time, their resources, and their money in making ways to be more centric around their customers. And these are the companies that are poised to win in this new Workforce 4.0 economy. And so how does this bring me back to RPA? It's a really simple jump from one to the next, because the truth is when you talk about intelligent automation, you don't get too far without landing on RPA as a real solid starting point for many companies, because RPA is by nature simple to deploy and manage. And what I mean by simple, RPA lives on top of your existing technologies. It's truly agnostic. It doesn't care that you have multiple unintegrated systems, whether they're databases or invoicing systems or corporate portals or even that, homegrown tool that you inherited with an acquisition last year. As long as you can map out a process from A to Z that you want a robot to follow, and that process is consistent every time, a robot can be trained to do it. Logging in here, reading this, pulling data from there, putting it in somewhere else. They do all of this, and they do it so much faster than a human ever could. What takes us 20 minutes, a robot can do in a second, and they can do it 100 times or 1,000 times, and they do it all day long without any errors. So this is why RPA is a great place to kickstart any digital transformation program, because you as the business lead can make change happen without having to beg for big IT dollars and resources. And you as the business person can get to ROI in under 6 months, and maybe you use that to gain support for more automation programs. So Andrew Gleason from Redwood is going to show us how an RPA robot in action really works during his presentation. So you'll get to see this firsthand. But as we go into that, I just wanted to leave you with these thoughts, because I think it's critical to understand what RPA really does. And at the bottom here is sort of my very simplistic definition. It is a software that allows humans to automate repetitive, mundane, computer-based tasks, freeing up the workforce to improve productivity, reduce costs, eliminate errors, and gain back time. And as RPA is getting smarter, the results in the projects where you can use it are only getting better. So if all that sounds like something you could use more of at your organization, you're going to be in for a treat today, because our two guests are about to show us exactly how it's working in their organization and what it can be for you in transportation. So it is with that I wanted to leave you with, to start with Saurabh Sharma, Principal Analyst of Ovum. And he's here to talk about the trends and adoption, trends that are shaping the adoption of RPA in transportation and logistics. So without any further ado, welcome, Saurabh. Thanks for joining us, and over to you.
Thanks, Wendy. So I'll start with the different phases of RPA adoption. Next slide, please. So the first wave of RPA adoption that started probably 5 years back was all about our basic screen scraping, UI automation, swivel chair tasks. So you were copying information from one application and keying the data in another application. That was the first and the basic use of RPA. And that was driven by the need to reduce costs and errors associated with human involvement. These included mundane repeated tasks and service centers or back office function. Now, the current wave, or the wave we are currently experiencing for RPA adoption, RPA is not just about task automation. So as part of my research and talking to enterprise IT leaders and RPA initiative leaders, RPA is being used with BPM case management and along with machine learning capability to provide end-to-end process automation. Next slide, please. So what's RPA as seen from a process perspective? So it's suitable for structured and semi-structured process. So what I mean by structured and semi-structured processes is a process where you have a clear path from A to B, B to C, C to D. You can do straight through processing, that's structured process. And where most of the steps identify, that's semi-structured processes. And from process perspective, RPA is suitable for high volume transactions. So you need to do similar tasks again and again throughout the day, throughout the month, throughout the year. You're enabling workflow, swivel chair task automation, that is multiple systems or dual data entry. You're matching data, comparing data. And for anything where you require simple decisions, that can be handled via rules engine. So you don't need a human judgment call or an artificial intelligence system of similar capability. Next slide, please. So here we are looking at the convergence of process automation approaches. We had IT process automation, which was all about automating IT service management related tasks that you would have in an IT help desk. So all IT centric processes. There was a wave of IT process automation. Then we had BPM and business process automation, which was deploying business analysts, business users, and you would automating processes. Now we see a convergence of these two processes. And with the introduction of machine learning, artificial intelligence capabilities, it's no longer being just trigger based. So there is a trigger and the process automation needs to kick in and you execute the steps, but rather than rules based standard straight through processing, even in cases where you don't have patterns. So we are gradually moving towards agnostic process automation. Now, Wendy delved into some details of what RPA is. The way we look at RPA, or I define RPA, is it's basically a toolkit for rapid configuration of software bots. So these are not physical robots, these are software bots piece of software code that you can use to automate rules-based structured processes. Next slide, please. So this is an interesting slide, and that's based on my conversations with RPA initiative leaders, adopters over the last 3 years or so, and how we segment different type of RPA users in 5 categories. So laggards are those who have thought about RPA, but haven't really done much about it. Those are those enterprises which could have done a proof of concept, but never really went into a production RPA bot. That makes up to about 20% of the market. So even in 2019, there are 20% enterprises which haven't looked at RPA seriously. Then we have conservatives, and that makes up to 30% of the market, which have tried RPA. They have some strategy in place, some plans in place, but nothing has been done on the ground in terms of implementing production bots. So 50% of the market is for laggards and conservative. Then we have pragmatists. Pragmatists are those who have done proof of concept. They have deployed about a dozen of bots, have realized value, have concrete plans to move RPA notch up. So at a strategic level, not just a technical level. They understand what kind of processes are best suited for RPA, what RPA tools are best suited for a specific category of processes. So they have some strategy at a broader level and have implemented RPA and realized some value. Then there are visionaries who were ahead of the game as compared to pragmatists. Pragmatists by the way, make 30% of the market. So 20% laggards, 30% conservative, 30% pragmatists. Now we are left with 20%. Visionaries were those who started probably 2 years back, and they have deployed about, say, 3-4 dozen of bots, say up to 50 bots. They realized significant value out of that, and they have started using RPA alongside adjacent technologies. So you have the BPM suite somewhere in the enterprise, how to combine that with RPA to deliver end-to-end process automation, how to apply machine learning to RPA to take care of unstructured data, unstructured processes. These folks account for around 50% of the market. And then there are the innovators or early movers. That's just 5% of the market. Those started 3 years back. They have implemented over 50 bots. They have scale with RPA, scale as in they know how to repeat RPA implementation again and again, and for a different variety of processes. They have used BPM and machine learning and have started deriving value out of that. So that's what the entire adoption landscape looks like from a user perspective. Next slide, please. So we do an extensive survey of IT decision makers on their investment priorities for next year. We did this survey last year, and it's valid for an 18-month period. And this is specific to transportation and logistics vertical. As we can see, robotic process automation enjoys 22%, were very strong numbers the year for RPA. So 22% said they have strategic investment plan in RPA for the next 18-month period. That numbers goes again by 30% to those who have investment plan for RPA, not strategic, but some investment. So about 52% have, and this is again transportation and logistics enterprises planning to invest in RPA over the next 18-month period. And when we compare it to adjacent technologies like API platforms, the figures are comparable, in some case better. So it could be you're developing APIs for integration, or you're using iPaaS for SaaS integration. RPA is very much along those lines or better than that. So in short, this clearly provides a good indication that the adoption potential for RPA is very bright in transportation and logistics industry. The other question is, if I have gone down the route of RPA, or I keep hearing about intelligent automation, what is intelligent automation? What's the role of artificial intelligence or machine intelligence for machine learning for that matter. So the same survey threw some interesting facts. So out of the sample size, about 8% had already deployed artificial intelligence with RPA, which is a good number if you look at the fact that many enterprises have not even used machine learning and artificial intelligence for as simple as chatbots. They're just getting there. So this actually AI plus RPA combination was comparable to chatbots. And then about 20% more, so 21% are trialing with that, and then an additional 25% are planning. So 53% are people who have either deployed, are trialing, or planning, which augurs well. Machine learning allows RPA to tackle unstructured processes, unstructured data, where in a traditional context, if you think of it, you have a process, RPA automates some tasks, you need to pass it on to a case worker, a knowledge worker for case management via BPM. If we had machine learning, which will decipher and identify patterns based on how a human will take decisions, and you can have complex decision making logic embedded, you can pretty much have straight through processing. So that's just a start. Machine learning itself needs time to provide the best guidance and inputs, but the so many enterprises are already on this journey, and when you combine that combination of machine learning with RPA, it's a powerful combination for intelligent automation. Next slide, please. And then this again in specific to transportation logistics vertical. So for customer enablement, if we look at comparable technologies, whether it's speech analytics, you have a voice of customer or voice of employee platform, enterprise engagement platform. RPA is pretty much up there along those technologies. So about 12% have a strategic investment plan in RPA over the next 18-month period, especially for customer enablement. This is the main use case. And then about 35% more are planning some investment in RPA over that period. So all in all, 45 to 46% are planning to invest in RPA for customer enablement in the transportation and logistics. So when we look at just 2 slides back, this further reinforces that the adoption potential and the growth potential for RPA in transportation and logistics vertical is pretty good. Next slide. Now moving on to what are the key use cases for RPA in transportation and logistics vertical. So track and trace is the first one. It's simple. Makes sense, and you have inventory orders and load tracking, invoicing and credit collection, so all order to cash processes. There is so much manual effort involved in sending out customer and partner emails, but the basic understanding is if you have an application that does not expose an API or a web service, it's a legacy mainframe application, for example, then RPA is the way to go because it interacts at surface level, you interact at UI level, you don't need to have an API, you don't need to write complex code to do that integration. RPA allows you to do that. And one of the advantages of RPA, those of you who have dealt with EDI, electronic data interchange, it's a legacy technology used in transportation, logistic vertical, and several other vertical industry for B2B communications. So whether it's about sending invoices or any kind of information, shipment information, EDI is the way to go. Now, EDI is not very flexible as far as a technology discipline is concerned. It requires complex middleware at both ends. And the other thing is, there are many practitioners out there who specialize in EDI. So if you are one of those transportation, logistics, industry, enterprise which is struggling how to do things with EDI, then RPA can very well take some burden out of that and allow you to do more with less. Likewise, if you need to do integration with the customer's freight bill payment system, and there are hundreds of customers, hundreds of partners, you can't go around developing custom code or doing a custom APIs for all those integration. The whole burden of maintaining those APIs, those integration, if you look at it from a 2 or 3 year perspective, that development effort is very expensive. Those APIs need to be changed, those interfaces keep on changing, and RPA again takes the burden out of that. You can do integrations faster, you can automate the manual processes. And that does not just apply to transportation logistics, of course. These are the specific use cases for, but across the vertical industry, RPA is a better option when you have complex integration that's going to change. When you have applications that do not expose an API, do not have well-defined interfaces, RPA is a better option to do integration. And if I did an estimation. If I were to do custom code development for a legacy app that does not expose an API, what would be the development effort versus RPA? And the figures were great when there was around 80% cost saving in that. Okay, next slide, please. So this is a topic about which you would have often heard, and this is a key concern for many enterprises. And I get asked often, why doesn't RPA scale? And we face so many implementation challenges. So one of the observation is, for most enterprises, RPA story is nice until you have deployed 10 bots. And to get there, you need 18 months time period. What was sold on as a product that will deliver huge cost savings ended up costing like 5 to 10 times in terms of services as compared to the software itself. And that's all well and good. So there are a few things which need to be considered, to ensure that RP initiatives stay on track and deliver value. So one is you need to have right enterprise skills in RPA. So RPA, whether it's not just for less skilled users, you need to have application skills, you need to have some basic automation skills, workflow skills to automate process with RPA. It requires training. But once you have done it for one process, you can repeat it, but it does require skills. The other aspect is change management. So if I've been working on BPM, I'm a BPM practitioner, people have qualms about whether my job will go away with RPA. So enterprise need to manage that change management process in a systematic manner. It's job losses because you're automating a process. The people who were doing that process will go away. Those are obvious qualms, so those need to be handled. And the third thing is IT got involved in the initiative pretty much when everything was done. So you have selected a solution, you identified the initial processes for POC and others, and then IT came in, and then IT says, well, your solution, you don't have the proper security governance and monitoring framework in place. I'm not sure whether this is enterprise grade or not. So it's always good to involve IT from the start. And while this is one of the common things which we see is people see RPA as FT, full-time equivalent employee saver. So if you are having FT reduction, so the business case of RPA is we're going to have 60 FT reduction with RPA. That's not the right way to go about it. Similarly, RP initiative leaders sometimes think about, every process is can be automated by RPA. All of those things need to be seen in perspective. So the holistic way to look at it is how much of processes which need to be automated, I can automate with RPA. How much portion can I achieve 70% automation? Can I achieve 80% automation? And am I able to deploy the employees and resources for something higher, of higher value and higher strategic, rather than doing repetitive mundane tasks? And that's when you see the real value at enterprise level. Just saying that it is going to replace humans, it will make life easy for everyone. Well, that's true, but that's not going to be resonating well across the enterprise. And last but not the least, you start an RPA initiative, you selected the wrong solution, you need to spin a VM, virtual machine, every now and then for every new bot, or you need to have a new Microsoft Office license, a desktop license for every bot running on it. That kind of setup will not scale. So infrastructure management costs, disaster recovery, those need to be taken into account as well. So those were the points that are worth considering when you are for developing a strategy for enterprise RPA implementation. Next slide, please. So in a nutshell, when you are selecting an RPA solution and vendor, solution is important, but vendor is equally important. And I'll touch upon that later. What are the essential capabilities? The first is you should have a free trial version for experimentation without any significant investment. So if you have workflow practitioner, BPM practitioner, they should be able to get up and running without much investment from your side. The user experience should be consumer grade for less skilled users. So everyone is not going to be highly skilled developer. So do you offer the user experience for even those less skilled users to come and deploy automations on top of RPA? And then the solution, if it's not providing, machine learning should be part of the product roadmap at least. Ideally, the vendor should provide machine learning capabilities by the time you take the decision to go with that vendor. And that's absolutely important for tackling unstructured data. Otherwise, that solution will be redundant probably 18 months down the line. And that, of course, increases the strike rate of your document processing. So if you're using a legacy OCR tool, machine learning applied to that can increase the strike rate from, say, 40, lowish 40 to 50 to 60%. And then enterprise grade security monitoring governance. Don't think of that as an island, automation island. It should be part of your enterprise process automation stack. And as I always say, if you are going to automate a process which is not inefficient, the value you will realize will be that lesser. So you should have the ability to model a process, model it well. You can remodel it, optimize it based on inputs from IT and business side. But process modeling is key to ensuring that you realize transformation value. And then, of course, process discovery. So being able to weave a process through steps, that's key. And from an overall value proposition, and especially from an RPA vendor perspective, is the solution should be available as a cloud service. And there should be no religion that you can deploy it only on Google's cloud or say Amazon's cloud or Azure. It should be portable across all cloud environments, IaaS environments in general. The vendor should have a strong product roadmap for RPA. If you see that there's no machine learning, there's no process discovery, no intelligent document processing, that's a sign that that vendor is not innovating for the next best thing, which is intelligent automation, not RPA. And then if you're a large enterprise, you want to do a transformational initiative, then it's essential that you have BPM case management capabilities, OCR, and analytics in terms of process intelligence for end-to-end process automation. Because the core value of RPA is to be an enabler to end-to-end process automation and not just to task automation. And last but not the least, the vendor should have a track record of successful implementation in large enterprise, be able to handhold you as you move through this journey from say 10 bots to 50 bots to 100 bots, 1,000 bots. They should have a track record of having done that successfully in several of previous implementation in large enterprises. So those are the key factors to consider. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Really insightful information coming from the industry perspective. You know, what I see is a lot of desire, and yet also a lot of companies are still in the planning and thinking phases. So it sounds like overcoming some of those challenges you defined is going to be key. And that's something our next guest speaker actually is going to help us see a little bit more clearly. For this next section, we have Andrew Gleason from Redwood Logistics. And Andrew led the RPA deployment for the company's Southeast division, and he has a great story to tell. I won't spoil it. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to pass the button to you. Andrew, take it away.
Thanks, Wendy. A little bit about me. I've been in the logistics industry for close to 10 years now. As Wendy mentioned, I am the VP of Business Development. I'm based in Atlanta. My most recent focus is expanding our presence within the Southeast. And our office has been utilizing RPA since 2015. A little bit about the company. Redwood Logistics is a top 15 North American third-party logistics provider. We are privately held by CI Capital Partners. They're out of New York. They're a great equity backer who have experience in transportation and logistics. We're constantly growing. We're up over 16. We have 16 offices throughout North America, including operations in Mexico. For 2019, we're on track to manage a little over $1 billion in freight, and we've got over 750 employees right now. So that's a little bit about Redwood. Next slide, Wendy. So we assist our customers in their supply chain needs through three main divisions or initiatives. Move is how we move our customers' freight throughout our multimodal brokerage, and we leverage both our own assets as well as our extensive carrier network. Manage is an area where we provide transparency to our customer, and we're able to offer flexible transportation management solutions, including distribution through our network of warehouses. We've got over 1 million square feet of warehouse space. And then Innovate, which is a division focused solely on technology. We do things like TMS deployment, system integration, and supply chain consulting. So our mission is very simple. We come to work each day with kind of one key factor in mind, and that is our customer success. So their destination is the only thing we keep in mind, and that doesn't just start and stop at saving them money. That's usually the first aspect we're trying to help them with, but we're also trying to help them make their lives easier, their business better. We help them streamline processes, increase shipment visibility. We help manage their exceptions. We help bring them new business intelligence tools so that they can have a better pulse on their supply chain spend. Our goal at the end of the day is we want our customers to trust us with their supply chain so they can focus on their business, which is, manufacturing or distributing a product, and then they can leave the supply chain and trust that it's in good hands with us. So that's our main focus day in and day out. So one of the ways we accomplish that mission is we leverage a blend of both proprietary technologies and third-party platforms. We're not too prideful to think that we have to build everything ourselves, but if it makes sense, then we'll go out and source the resources to do that. So we've got Load Runner is our internal load board that we use to manage our multimodal brokerage. Redwood Connect is a middleware software platform that is used to connect business-to-business applications, and in a nutshell, it can connect any system to any system. We are a preferred implementer and installer of both Oracle and Mercury Gauge transportation management softwares. And then Salesforce, we leverage that as our CRM, which I'm sure most are familiar with. And specific to this presentation, we leverage Kofax for our RPA solution. So before I get into how we leverage RPA, I wanted to, as this is a transportation webinar, I wanted to get into some of the challenges that we've experienced in our industry. The first is data. We get hit with data from all angles, from carriers, customers, multiple systems. We've got TMS, ERP systems, CRMs, and being able to make sense of that data, help our customers consolidate data into and standardize it so that they can make better supply chain decisions. And having to do that manually is a daunting task when you're managing thousands and thousands of shipments. So when we can't streamline that process, it leads to poor data, which ultimately leads to reactive rather than proactive shipping decisions. Shipment visibility. We have several of our, most of our customers are manufacturers, and with that, they're also just-in-time manufacturers. So a lot of times, being able to know exactly where and the accurate ETAs of where products are is imperative to their operations. So having to have humans manually track thousands and thousands of shipments that are in transit at any one time can sometimes be hard. We aim to have our employees help manage the exceptions where they can actually provide value rather than looking at a shipment that is actually, on track. We, of course, want to provide the information to our customers, but having to do that without the assistance of RPA can sometimes be tough given the volume. Scalability, being able to bring on a new customer, we don't feel, no two customers, no two shippers are exactly alike, and we don't want to place people in a specific box and say that you have to operate this way. We need you to send us data in these formats or else we can't do it. So RPA allows us to be able to scale those things and be able to be flexible and adapt to our customers. It also helps reduce overhead so that we're not having to just necessarily throw people at problems, which we kind of feel like is sometimes a Band-Aid solution. So, without technology, you're going to lead to an increase in overhead and they'll limit your ability to scale. And then innovation. If we're, constantly focusing on solving issues with manual tasks, then we're not spending time on any forward-thinking initiatives, which leads to poor customer retention, weak improvement strategies, and we just are not a company that ever is complacent. So back to our mission, we try and come to work each day with our customer success in mind. And if we're not trying to be ahead of the curve for our customer, then we're lacking as well. So next slide, Wendy. So Rob touched on it, and I think Wendy touched on it briefly earlier. I wanted to paint the picture of when we were first introduced to RPA. We were at a conference and we met some of the people from Kofax, sat down with them. They started to explain what robotic process automation was, and it was tough kind of at first because we'd never heard of it, to wrap our minds around exactly how it would work and how it would benefit us within our business. So this is what it is not. And even now when I explain it to people who aren't familiar, they get that kind of puzzled look and think that it's some Honda Nismo type robot sitting at a desk punching in orders all day. And, so it took a demo, and we through Kofax, one problem that we're having difficulties tracking a large volume of shipments with one carrier. And we set out to ask Kofax, hey, how would you guys solve this using your software? And as soon as we saw the demo, the light bulb went off. We realized how the software worked and what it was capable of doing, and knew that it was something that we were going to leverage in order to help scale our business. So, Wendy, if you go to the next slide, this is what RPA in action. So this is the front office side of what you're seeing. In the background, we've built a robot or an RPA process that is mimicking what a human would do to enter one single shipment. So our customers ship a lot of high volumes. We're getting data from their system, their ERP, and if we didn't have an automated solution in place, we would have to have people enter all these shipments. So this particular process is, like I said, logging in, it's visiting a website, logging in just like another user. It's going to each field that's required, and it's entering all that shipment information. It's actually generating a quote, and then it's selecting the carrier that was attached to that order. So in order for us to do a lot of the processes we do on the background, like track and trace, audit and payment, the billing, we've got to be able to get that information into our system. So this is just a single instance of how we're able to leverage this. And, if you think about having to enter in thousands of shipments at any given time, we're able to kind of pull different levers to control the computing power of our RPA software. So if we've got a really high volume, we can allocate resources that way to get those orders in faster, and then we can switch the lever if we need to downplay it. So this is just one instance. I thought it might help everybody today just to see kind of how the front end works when you have that in place and how quick and accurate it is. So Wendy, the next slide. So once we started automating a few processes here and there, we really started to peel back the layers of our business and kind of look at it through a different lens. Not only did once we realized the capabilities and the potential, we started to educate our employees internally also. Like, hey, this is how RPA works. This is kind of what it can do. If you guys have any tasks that you're doing day in and day out where it's the same repeatable task, then we really need to take a hard look to see if there's any value in automating it. And there was a ton of value in automating it, and these are some of the processes that we were able to go through. So the first thing we did was we automated track and trace. We felt that increasing our customer shipment visibility, weeding out the exceptions so that humans could get involved and actually solve those problems, and would lead to proactive solutions for our customers and be way more value. So we've automated almost our entire track and trace program. We were able to determine an internal ETA, meaning we were not just relying on what our carriers are saying the ETA is on that shipment. We were also taking the information that we could extract, putting a mileage that's left on that shipment, and then developing our own ETA. And we were comparing the carrier's ETA to our ETA to see if the two match. And then if they don't match, it becomes an exception, and that's when a human gets involved. So it's kind of another checks and balances to make sure that we're being proactive for our customers. But it definitely helps to have information and ETAs in several different facets. I touched on this, exception notifications. We're able to kind of automate some of that. Our customers, it's great if shipments are on time and they're on schedule, but we really need to know about the exceptions so that they can alert the end user. They can, sometimes they're shipping to construction sites and they need to have a forklift scheduled. So, we don't want to add any extra money or blindside them or be telling them about a shipment that's a problem shipment after it should have delivered. So Rob touched on this also, flexibility in customer and vendor integrations. As we bring on new business, again, we don't have to fit them into one format. We're able to adapt and be nimble, and we're able to do it in a timely manner. We're not having to wait on any of our customers' IT departments in order to help us get integrated. We're able to kind of hit the ground running and onboard customers at a much faster clip. Our auditing department leverages RPA as well. So we've got robots in place that'll go through and they'll compare a shipment's quoted amount on the front end to the actual carrier invoice amount to see if there's a variance. Kind of like tracking. If there's no variance, then great. All those are greenlit to pay. Then we invoice our customer and pay the carrier. But the ones where there is a variance, that's where a human gets involved and takes a physical look at the invoice to ensure that we're billing our customer the proper amount and we're not being overbilled from the carrier. Document retrieval. I've had several customers that required copies of the bill lading and the POD along with every single line item of the invoice. And so when you have customers that ship, hundreds of shipments a day, that task for a human could be daunting to, point, click, save this file, put it into a database that our customer can access, attach it to an invoice, those kinds of things. So we have RPA that's able to go through and do all that. Status updates. Not only are we able to leverage RPA internally for just data flow into our systems, we can also push data out, update other statuses and other systems as well with it. So if our customer needs certain updates, or even the end customer. I've had one instance where my customer's entire sales team, they had 300 or 400 sales guys all over the country, and instead of them calling into their corporate headquarters, we used RPA to push updates to a database that their sales team could access And then the phone calls to their corporate headquarters stopped. Each guy had access on his phone to track his shipments, and in the background, RPA was doing that. And then the last large process improvement is we were able to not only, remove the manual tasks, but we could also take tasks that were broken up and segregated, and we could combine them and consolidate into one single RPA function. So we're able to streamline not only one task, but multiple tasks into one. And it kind of goes along with how you see these processes are kind of separated by departments or the track and trace, the auditing. We leverage RPA to format invoices. And so again, once we realized the capabilities, we just started peeling back all the layers of our business and started automating everything that we could. And I think the next slide is some of the numbers that we've experienced. And so since we're implementing RPA, we've increased productivity by 3.4 times. Out of my office, when we purchased RPA, we were doing around 3,500 shipments a month. And currently out of my office, we're doing a little over 12,000. And we have not had to add a single person in order to do that. And that is being able to efficiently leverage technology to add business and streamline processes is how we're able to do that. Revenue, we were able to increase revenue by 55% within the last 2 months, 24 months. And that's because we were able to kind of work smarter, not harder, and we were able to leverage technology the right way. I would also estimate that based on some of the customers we were able to add and some of the processes we had to put into place to service those customers, had we not had RPA, I would say we had to have hired anywhere from 5 to 8 more people to be able to handle the same amount of volume. So when you talk about being able to reduce overhead, increase efficiency, that's how we were able to leverage all that so far. Wendy, the next slide I think is some general benefits, and I wanted to touch on this because when we first purchased RPA, we really had our customer in mind. We thought, this is going to be great. We're going to be able to automate stuff, make the experience for our customer tenfold better. And we 100% were able to do that. But what we found is we were also able to increase our employees' experience. So not only were we automating tasks that were previously manual, we're able to reallocate some of our employees' time to more value-added tasks where, like I explained earlier, they're getting involved with stuff that needs human touch, that requires somebody to pick up the phone and call our customer proactively. So, we experienced kind of on several fronts, but it did improve employee morale because I don't think that many people want to come into work and simply point, click, do data entry all day long every day. And ultimately, when a human is putting in thousands of lines manually of anything, you're going to make mistakes. And so that was really the large benefit I see kind of on both the end user, but also internally with our employees, as we were able to reallocate people to more value-added positions. So I think with that, I'm going to hand it back off to Wendy before we open up for Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. That was great. I especially like the example of the robot because for me, it really brings it home about how fast and efficient a robot can be at pulling all these things together. So we're almost ready to open the floor to questions. And if you have one to submit, please do so now, and we're going to get to it. But before we do, I just wanted to take a moment to go back to what Andrew said about how these robots really work and share with you something that we use a lot when I'm talking with customers, because it's easy to overcomplicate, like, what does it really look like when you do it? When you're building a process with RPA, what you do is you start on the left with identifying a process that you think should be automated, and you map it out. Sometimes you do this on a whiteboard, or you can do it on paper, but when you're ready, you open up the software into something called a design studio. And that's a very comprehensive dashboard, has all the things in it you need to build the workflow. And it's here where you type and point and click and record every step that interacts with the websites and the databases. When you're done, it shows up as a process map on the screen. There's no coding or development work that you need to do. It's just everything is done right here, logging into databases, et cetera. And just like in the human world, when you're ready to go, you assign somebody to do the work, in this case, a robot. And the robot goes and does all the things just like Andrew showed. And it can log into applications or move files around. It can go to websites and gather data. And it can, over time, learn to accomplish more and more complex tasks that you give it. And all the humans do is they stand over and watch and manage the errors and the exceptions. So, and that is where the larger world of intelligent automation really comes into play. And at Kofax, RPA is just one of the products that we offer inside a greater set of what we're calling an intelligent automation platform. We have 5 different pillars here, and they all are software tools that organizations can use to go beyond just task automation, more into this end-to-end process orchestration, to execute and analyze different things, to capture things, depending on what it is you need to do. But I won't go into detail about all these other tools because our time is short, and my goal really is to get us to the Q&A today. But suffice it to say that this is where it's all headed, and if these are topics you do have an interest in, it's certainly something that we can help you with. On this slide, you can see just some of the companies that we have worked with over time. Not only did we work with Redwood Logistics on their RPA program, but we have done work with 4 out of the 5 top logistics companies around, and you'll see some of them on here: Pitt, Ohio, Crete Carrier, Davies Turner, DB Schenker. Those are all clients of ours. So if you're still in your research phase, our website has a lot of case studies, white papers, and other items that you can build into your understanding and get buy-in and even build models for IA in your company, no matter what phase you're in. But that's all from me. From here, I want to hand it back to Maria, who's going to help us with questions and go from there. Maria.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Wendy. And thank you so much to all of you listening in for all of the amazing questions we've gotten. We are short on time, but we'll get to as many as possible. But we will pass those along to our speakers after so they can follow up with you if we don't get to those. So if you do still have a burning question, feel free to go ahead and send it in. First question to start. For an organization that's starting or thinking to start an RPA program, what would be a good example of a pilot or POC process to automate in the logistics and supply chain world to gain senior management support? So Rob, would you like to take that?
Yeah, so I will say start with a process which is a low-hanging fruit. So something like email communication, customer partner email communication, that could be a good use case. But also keep in mind that the POC for such processes could be a few days, whereas you actually tackle a real life end-to-end logistics process, it could take just weeks to do the POC. So just to have the practical expectation intact, start with a easy to do POC and a process which is suitable for that. Deliver quick ROI to develop a good business case, but also set the right expectation that that's not how all the process automations are going to be.
Okay, great. And for Andrew, question, how many bots do you have running for processes that have become highly automated? How do you handle errors within RPA when an external customer or vendor's interface changes?
So we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 65 to 75 processes that are automated and on a schedule. So that might not necessarily mean bots, but depending on when those processes need to be completed, some are daily, some are multiple times a day, some are weekly. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 65 to 75 processes that we've picked apart, replicated through RPA, put on a schedule, and automated. So what was the second part to that question?
Let's see.
I don't see it on the chat.
Sorry, I moved it right out of my line of sight here. For processes that have become highly automated, how do you handle errors within RPA when an external customer or vendor's interface changes?
So that's a good question. So the error exception handling is pretty easy. Kofax has a management console within it that highlights when things that are on a schedule run and the errors. So you can actually go to, so let's say I'm tracking 1,000 shipments. I can go to my management console for that exact robot. I can see when it started. I can see what shipment, what line item it's trying to track, and I can see which ones were successful and which ones aren't. We've got automated notifications set up. So let's say one of our carriers, and this actually happened before, Old Dominion changed. They had a pop-up window last Christmas or a couple Christmases ago that said, you know, Merry Christmas, customers. Well, that pop-up window was preventing our robots from logging in and doing the tracking that they needed to do. So we've got automated exception notifications when a robot consistently hits a certain step and cannot move past that step, so that it notifies us that, hey, we need to take a look at this process. It's broken, and make an adjustment.
Okay, great. And Saurabh, RPA implementation is cost effective. Wouldn't using RPA with an ML model, which sometimes might not come up with accurate model prediction, be a risky proposition?
Yeah, good question. So as I said, in order for machine learning to deliver any value, it requires time. It requires critical amount of data to start making right predictions. So you have to wait till that time. But once you have that critical data and you have that accuracy of prediction on the next best action or whatever you call it, then things become great. So it is risky in the sense if you don't have the right information architecture in place in your enterprise, and you can't ingest the right data to machine learning engine. But if you get that right, then the combination of RPA plus machine learning is not 1 + 1 = 2, but 3. So it requires, we are going to the basics of data science here. If you have the right information architecture, you have the right artificial intelligence. IA is as as important as AI.
Great. The next question, I'll let you both speak to this, but Andrew, if maybe you want to speak first from experience, what training or experience do staff need in order to build an RPA?
So that's a really good question, especially for somebody looking for it. So I did have a pretty savvy IT guy in-house and that I kind of worked alongside. I would consider myself, I guess, somewhat of a hybrid, where I can understand how certain things are doing, but by no means am I fluent in code and just going to spit out a bunch of Python off the top of my head. But I had an IT guy, myself, and then we were actually able to train a couple other employees how to go through and build a robot. So I'd say it is something that 100% can be learned. We no knock on Kofax or anything, but we're pretty fast-paced learners. So we did most of the learning on our own. We didn't go through any type of training with Kofax. But you don't necessarily need an IT guru, but it definitely helps, especially out of the gates. You know, a lot of times if you're building stuff that incorporates web scraping or anything, you need to understand HTML tags and where certain information is. But they also don't have to be, you know, IT grad student or major or anything either.
Great. Saurabh, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think a mix of business and functional skills. Workflow skills are important. You don't need to be a great developer, but I think some basic understanding would be helpful. But by and large, process modeling, workflow automation skills are more important. Rest RPA will take care of you in terms of scripting and automation of scripts.
Okay, great. And I think we've got time for one more quick one. What would be the best COE model for enterprise logistics companies with business units across geos? Centralized, hybrid, or federated?
Okay, that's a good question. I think centralized COE model has worked best in most cases. It again depends on the kind of enterprise you have, how much buy-in you have from the business side and the IT side. But from my experience, a centralized COE model has worked best across industry, not just transportation and logistics.
Okay, great. Well, everyone, we are right up on 3 o'clock, so that's about all the time we have for today. As I mentioned, we will be happy to pass along the questions to our presenters so they can follow up with you after to address any questions that we were not able to get to. But thank all of you for taking the time to listen in this afternoon. Thank you to Kofax for partnering with us on today's presentation. And again, thank you to Saurabh, Andrew, and Wendy for sharing your insights with us today as well. I hope you'll join us for another webinar again soon. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.